Top story, a Ukrainian drone attack targeting Moscow forced the closure of two of the key airports serving the Russian capital. Russian authorities reported that air defense units destroyed 9 Ukrainian drones heading towards Moscow, although there was no immediate report of damage. The US believes Russia's full response to Ukraine's drone attack last weekend is still incoming. Officials warn it could be a major multi-pronged strike involving missiles and drones targeting sites like government buildings in Ukraine. Experts suggest Russia may also target Ukraine's domestic security agency and defense manufacturing centers. Meanwhile, in Russia's Tula Oblast, the Azot chemical plant in Novomoskhov has been struck again by a drone, causing a fire. This is the second attack since the month of May. 2 people were injured, but their lives are not in danger. Ukrainian forces have regularly launched drone attacks deep into Russian territory, including a major strike on Russian military airfields. Meanwhile, President Zelensky has repeated his calls for sanctions on Moscow. Let's take a listen in to what he said.
Не можна послаблювати жодну форму тиску на Росію. Ані ті формати, що вже застосовані, ані ті способи тиску, що готуються. Росіяни готуються продовжувати війну, ігнорують всі мирні пропозиції. Вони повинні за це відповідати. Ми працюємо для того, щоб збільшити українське ППО.
We're now joined by Dr. Whel Aad, who is an international affairs expert based in New Delhi. Dr. Aad, thank you very much for joining us. These drone strikes deep inside Russian territory have continued now, including that strike, those strikes last week, Operation Spiderweb. What message do you think Kyiv is trying to send with these continued drone strikes deep inside Russian territory, Dr. Aad?
Thank you, Thomas, for having me. I think what the Zelensky miscalculation and the West supporting him has done is the damage to the peace talk that was taking place in Turkey. Because if you remember, the attack coincided with the peace talk between the two delegations with the with the Turkey inside Ankara. So therefore, that attack was nothing but a provocation not to stop this war. It's a clear indication that definitely that the Zelensky, he is not interested in ending this war according to the Russian dictate. But at the end of the day, it is the Western world who's giving the full support to Ukraine to continue this war. And I think this sort of an attack, it's neither going to change the paradigm of the war, nor is going to give him a winning hand. Even if they attack strategic weapon of Russia, Russia still can attack deep, and that's where the retaliation came very strong from the Russian against the Ukraine. And I don't think this is going to be an end to this war with such kind of a provocation method.
The US expects a major retaliatory spike from Russia in response to Operation Spider's Web. Do you think this could take the war to new heights, maybe reverse the little work that has been made on a peace deal? What are your thoughts about a possible Russian escalation in the conflict?
Well, I think Russia will continue the escalation till to bring Zelensky to the negotiating table and agrees to the Russian terms. But let us remember also that ever since the President Trump has come to power, he was keen on ending this war between Russia and Ukraine, and he even called for a ceasefire, and he wanted to intervene in ending this war. In fact, many people also look at it, Thomas, from different angles, that there is a conflict between the willingness of President Trump and the deep state in the United States who wanted to continue this war. Because let us also remember, this sort of an attack orchestrated and meticulously planned and executed by the Zelensky forces is definitely not the hand of the Ukrainian. It had happened earlier before also where the American acknowledged that they were the one who give all the data and the support to them. So therefore, there is a conflict of interest between the American keen interest in ending this war presiding by the President Trump, his own saying, or between the government, which has supported the deep state, supporting the West, that they wanted to see an escalation of this war. I think the Russian understood the game plan, that this war has to be escalated till they cause the maximum damage on the Ukrainian government, and then they can go for a sort of a negotiating and end this war. But for us, for who is watching the development currently there, I think there is also willingness among the West to take part in this war. But the warning from Russia came strongly against Germany and Britain. And I think that if we do not see an end to this war, it could be a wider war between European and the Russian at one hand.
Dr. Aad, moving back to the drone strikes from Ukraine in Russian territory, what does this say about the current capabilities of Ukraine in this war? I mean, many critics have said that Ukraine, their military capabilities are not up to scratch with coping with Putin. And did this Operation Spider's Web and this continued drone strikes in Russian territory, do they prove otherwise?
I don't think so, because look, we have to remember, as President Trump said Russia is a superpower. You cannot, equate both Ukraine with Russia. Russia is not prepared for a bilateral war or regional war with Ukraine, by the way. Russia has been for years, have been with the bipolar wars under the Soviet Union. They knew that there is enough arsenals to fight even the European at one end with the United States alongside. So therefore, I don't see that is a gaining argument or chips for Zelensky or Ukraine, that they will be able to cause this damage with this much of an attack. What do you gain actually by attacking such kind of deeper inside the territories? In fact, it's just an exposure, just putting more pressure on the Russian, but the Russian president and the government of Russia is very adamant about it, and they will never end this war according to what the West wanted this to end this war. For them, Crimea, Donetsk, all these provinces of Ukraine is part of Russia. If you wanted to solve this problem, sit down across the table, let us discuss a long peace solution and not to widen this conflict. So I think that is what the main objective of Russia, even if they go for peace talk with them. Having said that, I will always look at it from the geopolitical changes, Thomas. Also, we have to look at this conflict not in isolation, what's going on in the rest of the world, because at the end of the day, everybody knows that the United States wanted to appease the Russian to part them away from China, because the next war for the American, it's with China. Yes,
this Operation Spider's Web, there's no doubt it was a victory in the public sphere for the Ukrainians. It certainly boosted morale there and embarrassed the Russians, some say. Obviously, this multi-pronged response from Russia is still expected. Do you think that we're entering a new phase of this conflict, one with more direct and open strikes on high-profile civilian sensitive targets?
Well, I think that is the whole idea of provoking and widening this war and attacking civilian, is to tell Mr. Trump that this is not possible, that this war can be an end, because they're provoking him against Putin when he said Putin is not listening and he may impose sanction on Russia. And then after this attack, he talked to Putin and he talked that this was an escalation unnecessarily by the Ukrainian to widen this war and wait for the retaliation of Russia. So we will expect more of a Russian retaliation. Russia also is not a small country, wanted to tell to the world also, not only to the Ukrainian, that you cannot attack our strategic assets, and also that we are a superpower. We can deal with a small conflict like with the Ukraine. So I think this is going to be a highly escalation. And if God forbid the civilian will be targeted and got killed, then we may see some sort of anti-Russian sentiments increasing in the West, and where the President Trump will be forced to impose more sanction on the Russian rather than trying to find a solution where he was keen, even from his day one in the office in the White House.
And Dr. Aad, I just want to touch on this briefly because we are running out of time. You did mention it briefly there. President Zelensky is pushing for more sanctions on Moscow, but are sanctions still an effective tool against Russia at this point in the war?
I don't think so. It's much of an effect. In fact, for the last 2 years, we have seen the economy of Russia, the economic growth has been rising. And in fact, Zelensky might have gone popularity among his own people in rather than a peaceful time. But at the end of the day, it is the people of Ukraine who are paying the price. And the people of Russia still can face this, sanctions, but I feel they are feeling the heat of it, especially with now happening with the Russian there. But at the end of the day, neither the Russian people will accept any kind of surrender to the West or to Ukraine in any outcome of this war.
Dr. Whel Aad, thank you very much for joining us on the programme and for your insight. We move to South America for our next story, where Colombia